yards so I can get the camera in.
You need to get in first.
I can get in. I know.
What side you coming in on?
Yours.
Okay, so I'm gonna get up. I'm gonna get up because there's no way I can get through there.
Here we go. Let's go.
We live now?
Yeah.
Oh.
You can look on the camera and check and see if we got it going on.
Yep.
Right
Can
on.
you see?
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah, no, I just got the notification. Oh, no, I didn't.
They ain't gonna really see me too good unless I move over.
Yeah, just come on over.
Should put the phone needs to be right here.
We can do that. We can do that.
If you can back it up some.
Well,
Yeah.
you need to look in it and see what you can do to back it up.
I will. We live right now having this conversation.
Yeah, it don't matter. That's real reality.
Ah, shit. Problem is, does it need to stay plugged in?
Yeah, he needs to charge it.
Okay, well, this is about as far back as it's going to go. Let me see. Okay, I'm only getting two of y'all. Oh, because you ain't said no. So I'm like, oh, wait, we missing something, but let's see how that's moving. Ah, shit, you over? Come in just a little bit, my brother. If that's too, you go ahead and take the mic off, man. If that's or here, let me get you closer than that.
You don't have another one of these?
Go ahead. Yeah. Let's use that. But you got that stuff. No, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. Let's tighten this up. How was that? Is that about good? That's good. Right on. Let me check the camera. All right, y'all all in there? So let's go.
All in here.
Whenever you ready, I'm gonna just hit record.
Hello, welcome today. This is Hidden Corners, radiojustice.org. Today is Friends Tribute to Stanley Tookie Williams, The Myth, The Truth. The cover, we'll have the host today, Alex Alonso from StreetTV. We got Nat Turner out of Dallas, Texas, civil rights advocate today. As also co-host, I'll be the guest, and we'll be exploring the Stanley Tookie Williams case, his legacy, and other things. Do you have something you want to say?
Yeah, well, let's start talking about who Stanley Tookie Williams is. Well, first and foremost, Stanley Tookie Williams was executed December 13th, 2005, after sitting on death row since 1981. He was convicted of 4 murders after he was arrested in 1979. And there's been a lot of controversy about his case over the years, about his trial, about how well he was defended by his attorney, the evidence, the ballistics, the informants that were part of this case. So let's just start off talking about, you knew Tookie personally. You grew up in the same neighborhood. So let's just talk about who Tookie was.
Well, when I met Tookie was, I met him, I was in the 8th grade. I met his sister Bridget, was one of the first I knew at Horace Mann. But also I knew Tookie through Cutes, Rusty, Miles, Wayne, the way they all used to be in the backyard and we'd be lined up, their age group. Our age group, we were 4 years younger. I also grew up at St. Andrews Park from 68 on up, so I watched them develop into the group of men that were around him at that time. When I knew Tookie, I never seen him with a gun. Really in 1972, he really stopped gangbanging because the younger youth took over after the balloon murder. So there's a lot of myths and false testimony and things that have been negatively said about him, which we want to try to do today.
Okay. And introduce the other co-hosts and we'll get some questions also.
This is Nat Turner, Charleston White out of Dallas, Texas. He's come down here because the culture that started back then affected his city, and he wanted to come out here, give his support to the community, and to go back and take to his community to try to bring change and to come see firsthand so he can go back from an outsider perspective. Children, seniors, elected officials, just a regular part. So we're going to get an outside perspective view as to the culture that started and permeated the United States and basically the world.
So I'm assuming that in Texas, Nat Turner, they've all heard about the Stanley Tookie Williams story and the person and his history.
Yes, sir. You know, he's a phenomenon. He's a legend. You know, that's the main name that you hear. You don't hear about the others. You very seldom hear about Raymond. You hear Raymond's name spoken, but Tookie is he's the Statue of Liberty of Crippin throughout this country, man. And so I came out here to understand how did a bunch of youth in California, California neighborhood, had such a lasting impact on pretty much all 50 states in America. And it's been going on for 50 years. And many of these young men, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, you probably can name every culture or ethnicity that takes this banner and claims it. And most of these people will never ever come to California and walk on the street or go to Piru Street or go on 83rd Street. And so understanding is what I come, man, trying to seek to understand and go back and bring healing to a community that really don't even know the truth about this.
Now, when you was young, Melvin, could you have ever imagined what you and Stanley Tookie Williams and other guys like Cuz and Bub were doing would actually expand across this entire country and into other countries as well, with everyone wanting to crip all over the globe? Did you ever think that this was going to become worldwide and international?
No, never did we think in terms of glorifying it or our reputations. We're just a bunch of youth. One thing we did have was fun during that era, but never were we thinking along the lines 49 years later that this would still be as grown as far as it had, because you know they got a lot of sayings and it turns out to be true, like Crips don't die, we multiply, and we've actually seen it grow in numbers to where it's a phenomenon. But usually our thought was we probably wouldn't make it to 21 as opposed to this last 49 years going on the 50th anniversary.
Well, I have a question to that. There's a myth throughout the South and other states that when Crips started, that it started as an acronym: Community Revolution in Progress, Community Revolution International People. So there's a myth that comes out of California that goes out through the other states to saying that you guys were a bunch of kids, a faction of the Black Panthers, and you guys started cripping to protect the communities, and that's how it got started. So can you clear that myth or that notion up?
I only speak from my personal experience, because a lot of times we have guys that got different interpretations and this and that, and ain't nothing wrong with it, but the truth gonna set you free. The Black Panthers, if we 13, 14, 15 years old, we wasn't thinking about no Black Panthers at that time. Now, Tookie and them had grew up in the Black Panther age because they were 4 years older than us, but never did their philosophy of thinking deal with the Black Panthers, or it never was told or brought down to us. Actually started in 1972 in the first wave of 13, 14, 15-year-olds. You think we was thinking about giving out free lunches? They thinking about taking lunches at that time. That was a pro-Black era. When we come into the game, it went anti-Black, or however you want to call it. But at that time, it really wasn't no game.
Yeah. Elaborate on that.
Well, on the west side, Took them didn't start calling themselves Crips till about 71 or somewhere up in there. whereas opposed on the east side they had a group called Crib. But that was the east side. On the west side, it was a different ball game. We carried canes, we wore the ace deuces, we wore the khakis. We lined up and down that corridor. And after Raymond and Tookie met, the word was Crips, C-R-I-P-S. That not only was I around when that happened, but we have a word from Big Bob, cuz these guys that were actually there talking to Raymond Washington, Michael Christian, Melvin Hardy, Monk, Archie Crump. We could name all of them was there. So the acronym, that didn't have nothing to do with it. Usually when you hear that acronym, that's somebody trying to put their politics in it. But at that time, the Crips wasn't even known till the Baloo murder actually happened. There was no Mr. Bell. It is what it is.
All right, well, let's get back to talking about some of these things about Tookie. You just mentioned after 1972, Tookie kind of stopped gangbanging, but he would often get accused of things by law enforcement that he had nothing to do with. One of them that I remember was the Big Five, or the stealing of the guns. They tried to arrest him, but it turned out Took had nothing to do about anything to do with that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, a lot of times later on you'll hear about where Tookie will say that the shell found at the scene of the crime never belonged to him. That's because prior in 1977, actually 2 Big Fives had been robbed for their guns at gunpoint. The first one was in Inglewood on Hawthorne Boulevard. The second one was in Hawthorne. So after the second robbery, the informant had him meet up at the hotel across the street from the Fox Hill Mall that just was built. And Tookie just went as a tag along to get a little couple of dollars, but it was actually the younger youth that had been doing the robbery with the informant. So Tookie, Donald Archie, and all of them went there, and it was a sting operation. 3 of them went to prison. The informant was released on bail. 2 of the informants, and Tookie and Donald Archie was released, which would later tie back into 1979 when they found a shotgun casing at the murder of the triple homicide that they linked to the shotgun. That's where that bullet come from out that robbery in 77.
Now you're talking about the triple homicide at the motel on Vermont and 104th Street.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now there's these other issues with Tookie's case that kind of I think a lot of people don't realize this, but some of the informants in this case are actual known killers themselves, namely Mr. Everett. What's the brother's name?
We don't have to. One thing I don't like, we know who did what. It's public record, but a lot of times when we talk about this, you have family members that could be ostracized. Mm-hmm. So we're just, it's like when you're dealing with a child or a youth on that deal, we'll just keep the family names out for now. They're public figures, known in the community. We don't want to label and then get them ostracized. Oh, your daddy did this and your daddy did that, or your uncle did this. So I just tell you what happened.
Okay, but we do know that some of the people that testified against Tookie and that were witnesses in this case had their own cases.
Actually, the witness that testified in Tookie triple homicide. See, we're talking about the triple homicide, and Tookie always said he's not pleading guilty to something he didn't do. He never said he didn't do all of them. He just said he's not pleading guilty to something that he did. And that's the focus we're on now, is the triple homicide, to where a subtle change in the description of the suspect, to where they flipped it to a witness, to where they wouldn't have to bring his record in, caused Tookie to not have a fair trial in court and denied him his due process of the law.
Now, do you know anything about the court or the police while he was in custody? Were they medicating him to the point where maybe he wasn't even fit for trial at the time? Is there anything that you could speak on regarding that?
Well, in 79, August 9th, day after Raymond Washington got killed, the same informant told on me about a jewelry store robbery. So we were going to court actually in Torrance together with the same public defender come up years later. And I never known Took not to be in jail because he never really went to jail. So every time I seen him, he was sober, coherent. But it's one other thing about the court that we was going to, the Torrance courtroom, that a lot of people don't know. They had such a high conviction rate because we would get arrested by the sheriffs over on our side of town and have to be bound over to go to trial out there in Palos Verdes when we were in the city kids. And at one time they had to change all the judges from out there because their conviction rates were too high. So they had to shut down the court and change the judicial system up there. So at that time in 1979, it was very hard to get a fair trial, even as we stand today.
Yeah, I think even today, nothing's changed in Torrance Court. It's one of those courts that no one wants to be in because the jury pool comes from a predominantly middle to upper middle class white community. And it's just kind of weird that there's a part of the neighborhood when you get into the 90s and 100s that's patrolled by the sheriff. And if you get caught doing anything there, you're going to Torrance Court. But if you're caught doing anything north of that little section in the 90s and the 100s, you go to regular downtown Los Angeles court.
And Inglewood would send you to Torrance Court because a lot of times on our end, we'll get into it with the guys over in Inglewood, and that's where we end up going to court. So a lot of times we ended up in Torrance Court.
And I think that the fact that Tookie's trial took place in Torrance really changes the whole dynamic of that trial, because if it would have took place in Los Angeles with a different type of jury, we don't know, it might have been different types of results. Torrance Court is one of those courts that you don't want to end up in. But I wanted to talk about I guess it was a case that passed, Brady versus what, and how was that related to Tookie's case?
Tookie filed a motion, Brady versus Maryland. It's a statute to where if you can prove it, it gets all your evidence thrown out, and it usually gets you a dismissal and freedom. I had a life sentence up under and got out up under Brady versus Maryland, which is basically when the lead prosecution does not divulge information that could exonerate or convict the defendant, and it doesn't matter whether he did it purposely or not, or whether he even knew. If you can find anybody within that chain of command that gave some information and or something and did not give the discovery to the public defender or the state appointed attorney, and it ends up prejudicing the case up under Brady versus Maryland, that's an automatic dismissal. And Tookie filed a Brady versus Maryland, which has merits to the point to where the family of the three defendants that were killed in the hotel, their parents need closure. And I don't think it would sit right if they would think that an innocent man might have been executed. So this is a plea to them. If they want to hear the truth, come and dispute what I'm saying, and we'll let the cards fall where they may, because an innocent man was wrongly convicted. His investigators knew that the main witness and the only witness that was involved that actually put Tookie on death row was a suspect in 7 other murders, which they didn't disclose to the jury by saying that he was a witness as opposed to being a suspect in one of the murders that Tookie was up under investigation for also.
Well, I'd love to talk more about that, but I guess about those seven other cases.
Oh, we can talk about them because they're cold cases, and it's going to go to the point of how would I know them unless the police told me, which means if the police told me, that means that prosecutor should have knew and Tookie should have knew. So it's very important because they're cold cases now, and either I was involved in them or somebody told me.
Now, before Tookie was executed in December 2005, a couple people wrote affidavits wanting to change their story, change their original testimony, change what they had originally said back in 1981. But I don't think Arnold Schwarzenegger didn't wanted to hear any of that. Can you talk about some of those affidavits that were filed before he was executed?
Yes, actually, it was three of them filed. They filed two, and they shut down the prison and came to me to get one on a Sunday, which was the Wednesday before he got executed, because they knew I had information that was pertinent to the case. We also have to hold his attorneys and his legal team responsible also, because it was a clear case to where when they brought in the two witnesses from the county jail, wasn't nothing new about the information they was giving them. So it wasn't nothing, they was riding a dead horse down a dark canyon. But they thought that because they were white, that would get sympathy. That ain't how this go in this game. You better have the law down to the path to where you can address the law with the law. So I filed an affidavit called Barbara Becknell. They got permission to come and shut down Avenal State Prison, cleared the visiting area, and they brought in his lawyers and they took an affidavit, which was newly discovered evidence to where that I had made the accusation that the star witness, they lied about him being, first I said, how could he even be the star witness when he's up under investigation for 7 murders at the same time? So they made an error. On the governor's hands was tied because they used that, but the Supreme Court made an error. He should have been granted a 90-day stay until they found out what my testimony may have been, which wouldn't have hurt it because the affidavit was in, but nobody came to follow up on it.
Now, I don't know if everyone heard that, but one of the witnesses against Tookie was possibly linked to 7 other homicides. And I guess the jury didn't know that.
No, because they subtly told him that he was a witness when in fact he was a suspect, that they was fit to get the house searched. Then he told them the shotgun belonged to Tookie, but they was on his way to search his house behind the murder.
Now, you mentioned Barbara Becknell. This is the woman that I guess hooked up with Tookie in '93. She wanted to write a book, and then she ended up helping him write some children's book. Well, a lot of people are a little soured about her over the years. What's your whole take on her relationship with Tookie over those years up until he got executed?
Well, I think she helped bring awareness and attention and made an impact as far as the death penalty and bringing awareness to it. She did what she can. I can't speak on her, no ill thoughts or nothing like that. But I think in hindsight, things might have been different as far as him and his court proceedings and what should have went down, and the lawyers that were actually involved. I think they could have had a better representation of those involved and make a change. But other than that, I can't speak on it as far as her being at fault. I just think that ignorance of the law is no justice or no excuse.
Yeah, she was behind the book Blu-ray's Black Redemption, and she also helped put that movie out, Redemption, which I'm sure screened all over the country. You guys probably saw it in Texas, huh?
Fox,
Redemption, starring Jamie Foxx.
That actually got Jamie the role for Ray. So, yeah, he got him a few Golden Glove nominations when he played the part of Tookie. So, yeah.
What did you think of the movie, by the way?
I never seen it.
Never saw
the
the
last
movie.
movie I seen was Superfly, the original. True story.
Okay. Also, during this time with Barbara Becknell, Stanley Tookie Williams was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize by the Nobel Committee. I believe that would have been in '98 or '99, around that time. What did you think when that happened, that nomination?
I think it was warranted, and like I said, he was an innocent man on 3 of those murders that got him the death penalty. The other one, the evidence speaks for itself, but that wouldn't have got a young man the death penalty. I think it was an honor that they put him up. Actually, the guy who put him up name is Fer, F-E-H-R. I sent him a friend request to look into this, so maybe he might can go and posthumously a refiling and get that honor sent to him. But not only that, help exonerate his name, since he felt it was an honor. Jamie Foxx, Snoop Dogg, all of them that sat up there and rallied around him, don't kill him, don't execute him. They need to come up and stand up and step to the plate and ask for a pardon, and that his name be pardoned by the governor or whoever in charge of doing it. and open this case back because we have other young men that are on death row, not only here in California, but across the nation. And how many times are we seeing men that are framed, exonerated, getting out 20, 30 years? But how many men have been executed during them 20 or 30 years wrongly being convicted or unjustly represented in this judicial system in the United States?
Well, Stanley was executed in December of 05, and then they executed one more person in January of 06. And since then, the state of California has not executed anyone because there was a moratorium on the process. They felt that maybe it was inhumane, and they decided to I guess, retweak the drugs that are used to execute someone. Then it went up for a vote a couple years ago, and surprisingly, y'all voted for the death penalty. The people in California actually voted to keep the death penalty when a lot of people thought it was going to get overturned. It was a close, I think it was like 50-something% to 40-something percent. What do you think that California actually still has the death penalty when it seems like everyone we meet is against the death penalty, but somehow that didn't pass?
Well, you have a big political machine. The prison guard union is the #1 union out here. It's the prison guard union. You have the lack of voter registration and other things. And this is one of these states to where they're tough on crime. Politicians are scared to even talk about any type of soft reform, particularly when it comes to inner city violence or the death penalty or relief from a prison period. But if one person is executed and their life is lost to where it was unjustly because of a law, particularly in nowadays and the times we're seeing with so much media information being given out, police misconduct, police brutality. But a lot of times these people in these pockets of poverty that Obama eloquently related to don't get the redress that they do. If this was Barbara Streisand or Snoop Dogg or somebody saying their child was framed, they get redress. If we can sit up here and say that we have evidence where a man was executed where everybody said he should, and if we can prove that, then maybe we need to go and re-examine the death penalty. And even though they did vote on it, we can have a moratorium put on it till we examine this death penalty more thoroughly and see if it's being applied applicably in all demographics.
I think in the future that California is going to overturn the death penalty. We got a lot of millennials that are definitely against the death penalty, and it's just a matter of time. But in Texas, man, the death penalty is alive and well and doesn't look like it's going anywhere anytime soon.
It's there supposedly to curtail crime, but we know the death penalty is statistically proven that it doesn't. When you talk about Texas and California, you're talking about two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, red state and the blue state.
Yeah, red state and the blue state. So it's kind of surprising that with this being a Democratic state, that it voted to maintain the death penalty.
You'd be surprised that some of these liberals are actually low-key conservatives on the side, I think every single liberal politician in California, at least 90% of them, support the death penalty. Like Melvin said, they want to be hard on crime because if you're soft on crime, I guess the theory is you're not going to get elected, right?
Well, with restorative justice, restorative justice practices coming to California, you hear that term a lot in the political arena out here in California. You don't want to get tough on it. You don't want to get soft on it. You want to get smart on crime. And when you think about what Melvin's talking about, it's getting smart on crime. It's not saying let's not do away with it. It's saying let's go back and reanalyze this and make sure we're not, killing innocent people. And America has a history, a long history of killing innocent people by way of the death penalty.
Let me interject and also add on to this. And this is what I mean about fairness. If you got a law, the death penalty, there's only certain categories that make you applicable to even get it. Maybe 20 of them, special circumstances. But when these special circumstances occur, everybody that's eligible, some get it and some don't. Now, if you're going to make the death penalty make it to where anybody whether it be celebrity or whoever, they get the death penalty with no deals. Other than that, how can you selectively pick a guy who went and killed like the Mendez brothers? They went and killed their family for financial gain on purpose, which was qualifying them for the death penalty. They got life without. You got another guys, like quite a few guys, that were locked up while they were on a drug bench. Didn't even know what they were doing intent or have any intention on doing it. They were just spaced out. But they'll get the death penalty. So we have to explore a way to where if you're going to make it where it's applicable to everybody. And then that way when a criminal go and break the law, he know what he's standing when he do it. But you just can't arbitrarily make it to where one person get it, then the same person that's eligible for the same sentence for some reason or another, he gets it and the other one doesn't.
Yeah, and if you received the death penalty prior to 1977 in California, you end up getting your death penalty overturned. That's why Charles Manson, who originally received the death penalty, ended up getting life without, even though he was convicted of being linked to 7 homicides. So he was able to get life without, even though if anyone deserved the death penalty, it would have been someone like Manson, but even he got the benefit of the doubt.
And you know something that's so crazy about that? We have another law just to switch it, just to show you how this death penalty and how they don't trick y'all out here in California. Now, Charles Manson was on death row. They overturned it, cruel and unusual punishment. So it helped him, so it took him off. Then they come back with the death penalty.
Yeah, just a few years later.
But they didn't put him back.
No, they didn't put him back.
But now we have a 3 strikes law to where it was implemented in 94, but it go backwards and it adversely affects me.
True.
But they couldn't make a law that go backwards to put Charles Manson back. There's never been a law as far as this 3 strikes initiative, the California 3 strikes out of 33 strikes. They're the only ones that's retroactive that go backwards. And that's a very good point. So when we go to addressing that later on and it come up to vote, because we have an initiative in a bill to do that also. That's a very good question. Example of how when the law is retroactive and it helps you, it took him off death row. Then they reinstated it, but they didn't go and apply it and put him back. That's why this California 3 strikes law is one of the most horrendous laws that ever been laid out in the public to destroy a community at the price of votes, starting with to get tough on crime. As we heard Clinton when he apologized and everybody think it was the federal law. He didn't even make his federal law retroactive, but he endorsed the California 3 strikes law that was retroactive, which started the downfall of the National Rifle Association, where they backed up off of them because that's who they were attacking. And then when they seen tough on crime with Mike Reynolds, whose daughter Kimberly was executed, but he put a baby poster on the picture of his daughter for sympathy. So we better watch the messengers in this.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, that the 3 strikes is retroactive. It goes back. Not only does it go back to your old cases, it could take one case where there were multiple offenses in one case and count one case as 2 strikes.
One arrest could get your life taken out here and won't even know it.
Okay, so let's talk. You mentioned ineffective assistance of counsel as another point and issue regarding Tookie's case. I mean, we both know the lawyer. I've met the lawyer.
Enberg?
Yeah, Enberg. I met him a few years ago. I'm not sure if he's still around.
I talked to him. He's still around.
I met him in 2014. I don't know what type of defense he did back then, but what is your whole take on Enberg and defending Tookie back then?
Enberg, he was my attorney for the jewelry store robbery also at the same time. Enberg was a fairly good public defender at that time in '79. He defended vigorously, but I think more so he could do more now with the information that he has, to where he needs to step up and bring this back. Because if he fought, he was there. All those motions that he filed for Tookie, ineffective assistance of counsel, exploratory evidence, all those things that he filed, now he has a chance to validate them and possibly exonerate an innocent man And when I talked to him, he said he didn't want to be involved because probably what had happened is he'll see that he made some errors that were basically a layman should have been able to sift through that and find it in hindsight.
Okay, so Enberg was the defense attorney back then, working for the public defender's office at that time. I believe he became private later, and he actually knew a lot of people from your area. He worked on a few people's cases that I've learned over the years. So do you want to talk a little bit about this affidavit that you are going to submit or you want to file?
The affidavit as far as Tookie, I had filed 3 days prior to him getting executed was an error on the Supreme Court, to where they should have, like I said, gave him a stay for 90 days, interviewed me and other guys, because there are also witnesses that will testify that homicide came and talked to them about the informant about the murders. So if they talked to me and then went and seen another guy in prison and they said Big James was a suspect, that means he was a suspect, and they didn't ever tell Took. And this is what Took said up under Brady versus Maryland, that the main witness is up under suspect for murders, and they said he wasn't and used the term as a witness when in fact he was up under suspect of 7 murders.
Now, this is the witness that actually called the police up and said, I have the shotgun under my bed.
That is partly true, but they had him already in jail investigating him for the murder, for other murders, when they got ready to go back to his house. If I'm not mistaken, that's when the shotgun, or he gave it to him and all this, but he had been prior to that maybe 24 hours or something like that up under investigation for 7 murders.
Now, I think, can we talk about how this witness was an informant, not just on Tookie's case, but he informed on other cases? Wasn't he partly connected to the Big 5 gun heist case, and wasn't he possibly telling on that case?
Well, the first time they robbed the Big 5, he participated in one, and him and his wife sat in the car the other time. But the first time, he was older than us, so everybody met him and their family. I was one of the first to know him at 15, and welcoming over there off 84. So Took them come later, but we had been robbing and heisting at 14, 15, 16, 17 years old with the older informant that ended up being an informant. So yes, he got caught selling the guns from that first jewelry store robbery. Then the second one, when he went to turn it in, that's when they got set up, and he wouldn't give them the money to pay the guys, and that's when he told them they wanted to meet him at the motel, and that's when Took him out.
And if I did my math on this informant, this witness, this guy that moved into the neighborhood on 84th was about 35 years old when you guys were teenagers.
Yes, 15. I met them, Susan, Tona, Esther, all them. Actually, they the godparents of my son. They raised my son. My son called them grandmother, grandfather. We know their family very well. We played sports together. We stayed together. They moved from 84th to 116th. Off of Century. Then we moved off 104th, where Tookie and them subsequently got arrested at. So we've been together and around since about 74 or something like that. But I've been on the family fairly long.
So when they picked him up on 104th, they picked him up from this guy's house at the time.
Well, actually, they had the house under surveillance, and they let Tookie and them get in the car, him and a guy named Durrell, I believe, and they pulled him over like on Western and Century, and that was the last time Tookie was on the streets.
And there's another witness, we won't say his name unless you want to say it, but he eventually testified or told on Tookie, and he got deported to Canada. And years later, he committed his own killing in Canada. And it turns out another informant against Tookie was a killer himself. I'm sure you're aware of that one.
Mm-hmm. But that's the first murder.
Yeah, that's the first murder.
But that ain't the one that got him the death penalty. We want to stay focused on the one. I know exactly who you're talking about. That was my boy. Actually, a couple of days before they got arrested, I was in the halfway house. I got out February the 6th, 79. He got arrested March. And them two were together in the backyard over the informant. And I told him, man, because we didn't never heard of no snitch. I ain't never heard of the word. So they in the back lifting weights, smoking a little bit, him and this boy. And they asked me to jump the gate. So I told him, man, I'm not jumping the gate to come over here. I think this dude telling. Because everybody else had went to jail from 77 and was in prison. And he still talking about he going to court. And I told him, man, I think something wrong. I think this dude telling. I'm not coming over there. So quite a few times I went over there between February and the time he got arrested, but I never went inside because my son was being raised by him. And that was the first time seeing my son. When I was getting out, he was going on too. So I seen him over there quite a bit.
Well, it seems like that in all these years since Tookie's been executed, 13 years, no one has really looked at his case in depth. No one has really decided to pull the transcripts, to look at all the testimony, look at the evidence. I recall that there was also, the police tried to say that they were able to link shotgun shells to the shotgun, but it turned out you can't even make that connection. It's not like a bullet matching a firearm in terms of matching shotgun shells to a shotgun. Everyone knows Tookie had a shotgun, but they were never able to make that match. If you hear about that, it's not true because you can't match shotgun shells to a shotgun.
Right, but what they were trying to do is from the shotgun shells found at the scene of the triple homicide come out one of the robberies.
Correct.
At the surplus. So that's why Tookie always would make the statement, the shotgun shells weren't mine. Because he wasn't there at the robbery. If Big James, and I don't say his name, but you know, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Because he's an all right guy, but it is what it is.
And he's resting in peace right now.
So it is. So we don't not mention it, but that's what it is. But when he is the one that was 30, 35, when we would do a robbery, we didn't think about no fence and all that. We give it to the older man. We just was getting the money. So you can infer if all the guns and the bullets, everything going to him, who would you think would be in possession of it more likely? The man that had it or took it?
That's deep, actually.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
So when he got caught, see, Tookie could have told on him and say they was his, but he didn't do that. He just kept saying the bullets wasn't mine. And they wasn't his. They come from out the robbery or the big five, so they knew, like you say, the shell, the markings on the back didn't have nothing, but they knew these were special shotgun shells that came out the robbery where they could link Tookie to being there where they were supposed to be sold at a sting operation for that robbery. But you would think if he knew he was everybody going to there, the informant, you would think that he's not going to take every gun and pistol there because he know they're not coming back. They don't have no accurate account. So you would think that he would stash. And that's what he did. That's why Tookie always say the shotgun shells wasn't mine. So they wasn't.
Plus, Tookie had nothing to do with that big five robbery.
Tookie, I never seen him do no robbery. Tookie and them just happened to be there because they was a little older and they knew we was going to get some money.
Yeah. So that's deep, that the shotgun shells actually belonged to the witness that sort of orchestrated this robbery for all the youngsters to do back in the day.
I'm not saying he owned them. They were in his possession last.
Yes.
He got them. The chain of command went from them to him to the police.
Now, someone might just say, maybe that guy just gave him the took. Maybe he just said, here's some free stuff. I'm giving it to you. You know.
Tookie never used that shotgun. Tookie bought that shotgun when he got shot to protect them kids at that house he was using. He never, if you think about it, for him to go buy a shotgun, even though to get one, it wasn't that strenuous, he couldn't have had too bad of a record. Tookie hadn't been in trouble. He had been working with at-risk youth with Bob Simmons, Factor Brookins, and Eric Red House out there in Compton, around from Centennial where he got shot.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that because a lot of people say, well, why did he have a shotgun in the first place? He obviously bought that shotgun to do some, to do some dirt. But as you said, he was a victim of a shooting, and that's what compelled him to go and buy his own weapon.
Yeah, he didn't buy that shotgun to do no dirt. When he bought that shotgun, it was after he got shot, right around the corner from Centennial on that canal, right up in that area. Because after he got from being immobilized, when I seen him, he was standing up, maybe not moving around, but his car, we had to change the tire. He had got shot, and about that time is when he went and bought that shotgun. Jamel was around him then at that time over there too, and that's when he bought the shotgun, not for the purpose of going to hurt nobody or none of that. That Tookie was so pure back then. He wasn't on drugs. He was all around, good guy ass. Because most of those guys that were 18 and 72, once again, when that younger generation came in and started bringing the real funk in the heat, they didn't want no part of that as far as we getting 6 months, a cite out for carjacking, 6 months for a murder, a ticket for a robbery, and this kind of stuff. Most of us got juvenile delinquent records where we was arrested 40, 50 times between the ages of 7 to 13 because they didn't have no laws for no kids doing the type of crimes we were doing at a consistent basis, particularly when it comes to senseless gun violence.
Now, do you remember what year that was when Took got shot and when he bought that shotgun? I'm thinking it was 76.
I want to say about 76, 75, right up around in there.
So this case didn't happen until 79. So that means this brother Took owned this gun for years. And now all of a sudden he's being accused of mass murder with it, even though he owned the weapon for at least 3, possibly 4 years. The records are out there on when he bought the shotgun. Because the driver's license was used when he bought the shotgun. Someone could fact check me on that. But he owned this weapon for quite a few years and probably didn't do anything with it. And then all of a sudden in 1979, they say he goes on this killing spree.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't sound like his character. It doesn't sound like what he was doing at the time. And it doesn't match everyone else's account of people who actually hung out with Took.
No. It, like I say, I and other people been around. I never seen Tookie with no gun. Actually, a lot of times I've been around Tookie and them. He very seldom demonstrated violence because he didn't have to. A lot of times, guys around him would do something that might hand it to Tookie. But as far as, particularly after 72, Tookie started being more of a showman, the Clark Gable of the Crips, where they'd be posing him, Jamel, Jackie, and all the other swolens, James Compton, and Alden Jones, Too Tall, the Swans. All these guys were tremendously built cats to where they had got into the image of flexing and representing Crip, but they were the Clark Gables, whereas the ones that was the 13 and 14-year-olds, those were the ones that were biting at their ankles, ready to be cut loose, and did cut loose at most of the events. So a lot of the blame be on these older guys, the Raymond Washingtons, and these cats here, when really in actuality, Raymond went to prison as opposed to going to YA with them. So when Raymond came out, things had changed from when he went in and expanded. So these guys get a lot of blame for being coming in being killers and this and that, and when you really reflect on it and look back on their history starting in 72, very few of them did violent crimes or even went to jail that were 18 at that time, as opposed to us being 13 or 14.
Now, Nate, you're hearing this whole background on Took and what he was about and the case, and you have any thoughts or perspectives on what you heard Melvin speak on so far?
Well, we've heard, or I've heard that, the character Debo is actually the mythical character of Tookie, the character Debo and Friday. We've heard that that's where the role Tookie kind of played in the community. When you think about the blockbuster hit American Gangster that BET ran for about a year or two. So they went and found all these they went and found all these guys out of our community, from Tookie Williams to Frank Lucas. And I remember hearing about Tookie in American Gangster. You think about this gangster guy packing pistols, shooting everybody. So to stand here next to someone who I would say is an original, who started with it, man, and hear that he never seen him with a gun. He didn't do no robberies. They was more or less like the Clark Gables. This is speaking truth to power, man, that could heal a lot of communities outside of California. I'm still trying to analyze the dynamics of what California is like on the inside. But one of the greatest differences that I know compared to living in California and not being from California is we get to take a break from cripping and being bloods. But we want to be a grandpa at 50 and 60. The guys in California don't have that option. So that's something I'm still trying to understand.
Now, one of the things I wanted to say about Took is that there are over 700 people on California's death row, and no one has accomplished or have done the type of activity that Tookie has done during the 20 plus years he was on death row. He produced a series of children's book. He wrote one of the best historical accounts on how the Crips started on the West Side. He even had a protocol for peace that he put out. And this is something that anyone on death row can do, but no one has done that. No one out of the 700 plus guys on there. What is it that you think, compelled Took to just get so active in doing all of these things, and even had a movie produced on his life before he died?
When people get in situations, get shot, be put in bad situations, what you holler out? Oh God. When you're on death row, when man don't give you life, you don't think about man no more. You have a lot of time to think, redemption, and trying to give back. He was a courageous man, because it's very hard to write your own obituary and basically time of death. You don't want to be put in that situation. But I think his calmness, his heart, he knew he wasn't guilty of three of those charges, but sometimes you go and say, why me, God? And then you look back and you'll say, well, it's a lot of things I got to do. And this is just paying the score, because when you're breaking the law and doing these things, the only time you pay taxes is when you go to jail. So I think Tookie just had a overcoming to where he wanted to give back. The spirit in him made him want to give back. Like I sit here and I'm fighting for him because I feel that he got a raw deal. I feel that the state could have did more with his voice. His voice could have meant a lot as for just like Larry Hoover, Jeff Ford, and a lot of other these political prisoners that are combined where their voices are silenced by the walls that they are sitting trapped in. So at the end of the day, I just think his faith in the Lord, his redemption, his calling. A man don't have to lie on death row about whether he did something or not. And contrary to what a lot of people think, people are seasoned convicts to where they go to jail. They might cry about not getting treated fairly in the justice system. You hear that a lot. But very seldom do you hear a man whining about, I didn't do it. Usually 9 times out of 10, the man had no reason to lie. And he probably smiled.
Now, I never did rely on the state of California to look at any of these death row cases seriously. I remember when Gray Davis was governor, right before Arnold, there was a guy named Manny Babbitt that was getting set to be executed. Vietnam vet, PTSD, was going through a lot. He was convicted of killing some elderly women. And Gray Davis, Vietnam vet as well. So you would think, okay, we got a Vietnam vet about to face the death penalty. maybe Gray Davis might have a little sympathy for Manny Babbitt. He knows what Manny Babbitt went through personally in Vietnam. But what did Gray Davis do? Didn't bat an eye. They executed Manny Babbitt just like any other person. So if you didn't get a commutation from a Democratic governor like Gray Davis, who actually been to Vietnam and understands the experience, I don't think there's too much to rely on in any of these governors in California. But you know what? We're in a new era, and we just elected a new governor, the former mayor of San Francisco. What's his name?
Gavin Newsom's punk ass.
Gavin Newsom.
If he's so good, why the fuck is homeless people all over San Francisco?
I know, the most homeless city in America. But in terms of dealing and addressing with the Stanley Tookie Williams matter, it's going to have to be something that goes on Gavin Newsom's desk. And how you feel about that, Melvin?
Well, we need to ask him and start the process of filing and asking for a pardon. First of all, I talked to actually some investigators today where we're going to start investigating, and we're going to place it on the mat to where we want some answers. I think my allegations have merits. I think Tookie's legal filings had merit and that the courts erred. And we want to put something on their desk to make them respond. So let's see if I'm telling the truth. And like I say, I don't care any proponent, anybody that's in favor of the death penalty, or anybody that think Tookie did the 3 murders. See, we ain't gonna get them mixed up with the 1 and then the 3, then you throw them in, because he said specifically once again, I'm not gonna plead guilty for something I didn't do. So anybody that think he should have been, and he did those triple murders, whether it be elected officials, criminal lawyers, or anybody, we can step here on your show or anywhere else, and we'll see who has the most merit about your theory and my facts. The man should have been executed. They should have gave him a stay. It was in their powers to make a stay, and they erred to where a young man that's probably in the court of law would have been found at. No, the case would have been dismissed and the death penalty would have been took off of it. And I'm willing to bet right now, because the death penalty should be a hot issue in 2019, 2020, to where we can put all the men on death row life and bet I win this case if it get investigated. And if so, we need to put a moratorium and nobody needs to get put or executed on death row till we figure out something. Let's bet that.
Now we're talking about, let's just be clear. Tookie was convicted of 4 murders, but it's 2 different cases. It's a triple murder that happened at the motel, and then 1 murder that happened at a 7-Eleven. So that we're specifically talking about that triple murder,
which got him the death penalty.
That's the Chinese family that were killed in the motel. I want to ask you real quickly about Governor Schwarzenegger at the time. But one quick point, we got a few minutes left. We talked about 3 strikes and how that law kind of goes back retroactive. You were one of the first ones in the state of California that had to deal with 3 strikes, and you actually wrote a book called The New Slave Ship about 3 strikes. Can you, for the next minute or so, can you talk about your personal experience with the 3-strike law?
Oh, yeah. Back in March 1994, I was one of the first to also get arrested up under the California 3 strikes law, which is ironic that I got arrested 7 days after the law for $2 worth of drug and end up with a 34-year life sentence for something that I did where I had, how I get 3 strikes, first of all, in 7 days. That means they went backwards. So things that I plea bargained for, 1972, 75, or whatever, they turned them into strikes with a swipe of a pen. And I end up getting 35 years plus life, plus a consecutive sentence. But more importantly, I was framed by law enforcement. Drugs was planted on me to be a poster child. I went through the headaches, the problems, the stress. I never wavered from my allegations of being framed and set up. And the problem is, like Tookie, we don't get redress. We don't get redress. But it's one thing to take somebody's life and sit up in there, because it's a fair bet. If you threaten somebody's life, don't be mad if yours taken. But when somebody's not threatening life, might be drug addiction or something, you don't sit and take somebody's family, somebody's child, to where they die in prison. and sit up there and be locked up the rest of their life over a law that was implemented in 1994 that but can go back to 1894.
And that inspired your book, The New Slave Ship. I recommend everybody go out there and get it. It's on Amazon.com, The New Slave Ship by Melvin Farmer. Final question. We really didn't get to talk about Arnold Schwarzenegger. Just real quickly, we got about probably less than 2 minutes. He's the one that wrote this lengthy 2-3 page report of why he didn't want to commute Stanley Tookie Williams' death sentence to life without parole. What are your personal views on Arnold Schwarzenegger, a guy that never any of us thought he would ever become governor?
Well, the world is a stage and we all actors. How do you think he got there? He acted. But anyway, you know, to be fair and honest, a lot of times these guys' hands be tied to where he didn't, just go back to his representation. They didn't give him the proper tools to where he could have gave him a stay. If they'd have pressed the issue of newly discovered evidence, that's all they had to say. Melvin has given us new testimony because I didn't even know what I knew existed. That's why it was new. I didn't even know the man had testified. I knew he told. But when I heard he testified, I knew something had to be wrong. So in hindsight, the governor, with what he was presented with, that's all he could work with, as all of them do. Then you had the tough on crime, where they would fear. So, but now he has a chance to where let's see what he has to say once he hear this evidence here and see what he has to say about that and the governor. We want to really address this to where we want to pardon, because we have other men's lives up here. It ain't about just blacks. We got Latinos, we got the poor, we got the oppressed, we got it all across the nation. We really need to address this criminal justice system, and not the prison justice system, the restorative justice, because there's mechanisms in place if they were implemented fairly by those that are the arbitrators, but you can't get a fair arbitration when the appeal is going to the prosecutor or the judge that know this man. So we have to think of a way to where we can get it fair and impartial arbitrators that will give everybody a fair shake.
Well, we got a new governor, Gavin Newsom. He's supposed to be the most progressive politician in America, so maybe he'll look at this with different lenses. I think Arnold wanted to hear from Tookie some remorse, and he actually wanted an admission. But we already know Tookie was not admitting to anything. He's denied his participation in those 3 homicides. But we got to wrap this up. I want to thank Nat Turner for coming in and giving his perspective from Texas. And man, Melvin, you just put it down. You gave us some hell of a jewel, some hell of a history. Yes, and coming from someone that personally knew Tookie, you're not going to get it any more raw and real from that. And make sure you check out my channel, StreetTV, formerly StreetGangs.com. And again, any quick last second words? You got about 10, 15 seconds.
Yeah. Next year, 2019, 2020 is going to be a crucial year, particularly for us along that western corridor in these cities up under oppression. We really have to come together and start open dialogue to try to rescue these men that are on death row, but not only death row, but their school to prison pipeline. We have Reggie, Assembly Member Reggie Jones Sawyer's $37 million youth reinvestment funds that are here to help accelerate and help those that are out here trying to give back and help the community, whether it be through mental illness, gang intervention, prevention, post-stress street syndrome, as he said. So let's just try to open up a dialogue to where amongst warring tribes, amongst our community, to where we try to give back to the community, create safe passage, not only for my child or your child, but for the elders, for the children. And let's just try to give them a chance to live and not go through the things that we discussed today, to where another parent sit and have to cry over the loss of their child, or cry because their child has been incarcerated unjustly and not coming back. There's so many things that are contributing to our Holocaust.
We're over time too.
that has occurred in here. And with that,
Well,
we'll continue and have other dialogue. I want to thank Nat Turner. I want to thank Alex
Thank you for having
Alonso.
me,
I
brother.
want to thank my man up here at radiojustice.org. You can hear a rebroadcast of this. Share this amongst your friends if you're interested in getting involved in this petition or trying to have Tookie's pardon because it's the right thing to do. It could save other people's lives because that could be any one of us up there. The cell is always open. And with that, we just watch Hidden Corner Voices from the Street, and we out.
Right on. Do me a favor, my brother. Give me an interview intro. And then what would you try to say, Nat, if you get 1 minute and I'll just stick all this shit in there when I re-edit it. We still live.
Oh, we still live?
we're